things, and Adidas can't drop me.
Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it.
We feed in the internet trolls and we reward them. I'm not gonna do it, man. I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna stay in my ground.
These are moments when celebrities boldly responded to millions attempting to cancel them. Let's start with Harrison Butker, a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. This guy managed to anger feminists, LGBTQ+ allies, and Swifties all at once during a commencement speech at Benedictine College.
While COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. We need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform, but God has given it to me, so I have no other choice but to embrace it and preach more hard truths about accepting your lane and staying in it. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority.
In the first part of his speech, he made it clear he was there to speak his mind without sugarcoating a thing. He addressed several controversial topics, including abortion, sparking significant backlash.
Instead, met with excitement and pride. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify Him.
He then made a comment about pride that many deemed anti-LGBTQ+.
I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
Speaking directly to young women, he encouraged them to look forward to becoming wives and starting families, embracing their roles as homemakers. Predictably, this enraged feminists who labeled his statements as outright sexist. To top it off, he quoted a Taylor Swift lyric which stirred up even more outrage.
This undue familiarity will prove to be problematic every time because, as my teammate's girlfriend says, familiarity breeds contempt.
By this point, the internet was in a frenzy. Multiple celebrities weighed in, including Whoopi Goldberg, the co-hosts from The View, his own teammate Travis Kelce, and Bill Maher.
I like when people say what they need to say. He's at a Catholic college.
Yeah.
He's a staunch Catholic. These are his beliefs, and he's welcome to them. I don't have to believe him.
Right.
I don't have to accept them. The ladies that were sitting in that audience do not have to accept him. The same way we want respect when Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, we want to give respect to people whose ideas are different from ours, because the man who says he wants to be president, you know who?
Yeah.
He says the way to act is to take away people's right to say how they feel. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be those people. So I'm okay with him saying whatever he says, and the women who are sitting there, if they take his advice, good for them, they'll be happy. If they don't, good for them, they'll be happy and different.
Things escalated so far that a petition was launched to get him fired. The NFL eventually released a statement distancing themselves, clarifying that Butker's views were personal and not reflective of the organization.
It comes down to his views and what he said. Those are his. I can't say I agree with the majority of it or just about any of it outside of just him loving his family.
Jonathan Bean, the NFL's senior vice president of diversity and inclusion, told People magazine, "The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which strengthens our league."
He said, some of you, talking to the women here, some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world. Okay, that seems fairly modern. But I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I don't see what the big crime is. I really don't. And I think this is part of the problem people have with the left, is that lots of people in this country are like this. Like he's saying, some of you may go on to lead successful careers, but a lot of you are excited about this other way that everybody used to be. And now, can't that just be a choice too? And I feel like they feel very put upon, like there's only one way to be a good person, and that's to get an advanced degree.
Despite the uproar, Harrison stood firm in his beliefs until the very end.
The theme for tonight's gala, Courage Under Fire, was decided many months ago, but it now feels providential that this would be the theme after what we have all witnessed these past 2 weeks. Over the past few days, my beliefs, or what people think I believe, have been the focus of countless discussions around the globe. At the outset, many people expressed a shocking level of hate, but as the days went on, even those who disagreed with my viewpoints shared their support for my freedom of religion. In my 7 years in the NFL, I've become familiar with the positive and negative comments, but the majority of them revolve around my performance on the field. But as to be expected, the more I've talked about what I value most, which is my Catholic faith, the more polarizing I have become. It's a decision I've consciously made and one I do not regret at all. If we have truth and charity, we should trust in the Lord's providence and let the Holy Ghost.
Another celebrity facing a similar storm was Kevin Hart, who refused to back down when backlash arose over comments made more than a decade prior.
I think it was right after I hosted the Oscars. We went to dinner,
Yes.
and we talked about you hosting the Oscars, that it was a dream of yours. You've always wanted to host the Oscars. I said you should host the Oscars. Then you get asked to, I mean, it must have been amazing when they asked you to host this year.
You know, there's a lot of goals that I have on my board. I got a vision board, and on that vision board is so many things that I want to do that I'll check off as they get done. And Oscars was up there. Oscars was one of the highest of highs simply because there hasn't been a lot of African-American comedians that have been able to do it. I would have been the fourth.
On December 4th, 2018, Kevin Hart was announced as the host for the 91st Academy Awards, describing it as one of his biggest dreams come true.
One of my biggest fears is my son growing up and being gay.
Unfortunately, the celebration was short-lived. Within hours, discussions about his old homophobic tweets and jokes resurfaced, igniting the internet.
The next morning, after a day full of congratulations and celebrations, I'm hit with an onslaught on social media of my past coming back up again. Literally the next morning. Not even a full 24 hours to glow in the glory of Kevin Hart is hosting this year's Oscars. And when it happened, you know, my first thought is I'm gonna ignore it. I'm gonna ignore it because it's 10 years old. This is stuff I've addressed. I've talked about this. This isn't new. I've addressed it. I've apologized for it. I'm not gonna pay it any mind. Because when you feed into that stuff, you only add more fuel to the fire.
Right.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna leave it alone.
Kevin addressed the controversy during an appearance on The Ellen Show, expressing his frustration over people ignoring his earlier apologies.
As the day goes by, the fuel is now, it's growing. This fire is angry. It's all over the place. Now the headlines are starting to change. The headlines are Kevin Hart refuses to apologize for homophobic tweets from the past. Everybody took those headlines and started to run with it. So now the slander on my name is all homophobia. Now I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset because I know who I am. I know I don't have a homophobic bone in my body.
Despite this, the situation worsened. Kevin had already apologized for those tweets years ago, but the public seemed determined to ignore that fact.
These 10 years are just being ignored. They're being brushed past. Nobody is saying, guys, this is 10 years. No headlines are saying 10 years ago he apologized. Nobody's finding the apologies. Nobody's finding the footage from where I had to address it. I had to address it when I did Get Hard promo with Will Ferrell because of my joke that I had about my son. I had to address those tweets in 2012 in a very, very heavy junket where I was asked questions about homophobia based on those tweets. And I had to address it and apologize and say I understand what those words do and how they hurt.
The backlash grew so intense that even his ex-wife publicly defended him.
Is Kevin Hart homophobic?
No, not at all.
You don't think he's homophobic?
He's not. He's a comedian, and he was just making a joke.
2 days later, Kevin received a call from the Oscars committee demanding another apology or threatening to replace him as host. His response was anything but predictable.
So I just got a call from the Academy, and that call basically said, Kevin, apologize for your tweets of old, or we're going to have to move on and find another host. Addressed this several times. This is not the first time this has come up. I've addressed it. I've spoken on it. I've said where the rights and wrongs were. I've said who I am now versus who I was then. I've done it. I've done it. I'm not going to continue to go back and tap into the days of old when I moved on and I'm in a completely different space in my life. The same energy that went into finding those old tweets could be the same energy put into finding the response to the questions that have been asked years after years after years. We feed in the internet trolls and we reward them. I'm not going to do it, man. I'm going to be me. I'm going to stay in my ground. Regardless, Academy, I'm thankful and appreciative of the opportunity. If it goes away, no harm, no foul.
Ellen DeGeneres tried to help him keep the gig, but Kevin's stance ultimately led the Oscars to proceed without a formal host for the first time in 30 years. Next up, Kanye West. Someone canceled so frequently, it's hard to keep track. However, one instance cost him billions.
Now, the thing about it, me and Adidas, is like, I could literally say and they can't drop me. I could say and Adidas can't drop me.
Kanye tweeted, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on certain people." Funny thing is, I can't be because black people are actually. You guys have toyed with me and blackballed anyone opposing your agenda. Naturally, the internet erupted.
I went from being a multi-billionaire to not being able to use my Apple Pay. 4 nights ago, I couldn't use my Apple Pay because somehow Adidas was able to legally go in and freeze my money. And when I see this, I think, well, if this could happen to me, this could happen to other Americans. And for what?
This led to immense pressure on Adidas to cut ties with him, a move Kanye mistakenly thought wouldn't hurt his status. But the fallout was devastating. Adidas ended their partnership, leaving Kanye on the brink of bankruptcy.
Yo, Adidas, y'all tried to destroy me, and now we got the #1 song in the world. And you out here, when I was there, y'all was stealing my ideas and put it in your company. Then you dismantled my creative team. Then you started making fake colorways. Then you paid off my lawyers while I was with you. Then you dropped me on a morality clause, even though y'all was the ones stealing my designs. Then you got the CEO coming up to me talking about, are we just gonna burn the product? Saying that directly to my face. Now y'all putting out product with my name on it. 60 years of contracts, or y'all 60 years of business experience to come in and take advantage of an artist. I'm just not laying back and watch you take. Y'all using my name, y'all using my designs in 2024. Y'all doing this.
Kanye bounced back by releasing a successful album, pulling himself back into millionaire status and proving his doubters wrong on Instagram Live.
There's some people who resent your success based on some things you've said they disagree with.
That's the whole thing. They got the right to their opinion. I got the right to my opinion. You understand what I'm saying? We all have the rights to our opinions, but so many people will lose their jobs, lose their careers for taking the steps that we took. You know, we went down for like a year and a half. You know, people think that I got, kicked out of Adidas for the tweet. We were having problems before. They were stealing my designs. They still trying to sue me. It's like, get right.
Right.
Get right, be honest. Y'all gonna send me $100 million a year, then say that I misallocated the marketing. I was the marketing. Look at where y'all at now. Look at where we at right now. Y'all wanna play? You're not gonna have me nap on the board. These companies, Gap, Balenciaga, they just wanna use the celebrities and have us be like the polo man on the top of the horse. And everybody knows, everybody felt what I felt.
Finally, we have Chris Pratt, a frequent target of cancel culture. In 2020, when the Avengers held a virtual fundraiser for Joe Biden, Chris's decision not to participate triggered accusations about his political leanings.
You've taken it beyond just lifting weights and in lean meats to something called the Daniel fast.
Yes.
What is the Daniel fast?
This is something I did just in this year. I just came off it a couple days ago. It's a 21-day fast. That's kind of, a lot of people are doing it. I did it through my church. It's based on Daniel.
The book of Daniel?
The book of Daniel.
The prophet?
The prophet Daniel, from the book of, from the Old Testament, the book of Daniel. He was a guy who, only ate fruits and vegetables and grains and didn't have any leavened breads and didn't have any animal products. And so I was inspired by my pastor. We do it. It's kind of like our Lent, give something up. And so for 21 days, I had no meat, no sugar, no alcohol. And it was actually amazing. It was really cool.
This led to backlash, even sparking the #CancelChrisPratt trend on Twitter. He later addressed the situation, brushing off the unnecessary hate.
That kind of a message, it might not be for everybody, but there is a group of people for whom that message is designed, and it makes me, nothing fills my soul more than to think that maybe some kid watching that would say, hey, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about praying. Let me try that out.
Just like some celebrities respond to being canceled, others are forced to shut down disrespectful interviewers. If you want to see those fiery moments, watch other videos, and do not forget to subscribe.